Living Time and the Integration of the Life by Maurice Nicoll. Chapter 1. Invisibility of Oneself. We can all see another person's body directly. We see the lips moving, the eyes opening and shutting, the lines of the mouth and face changing, and the body expressing itself as a whole in action. The person himself is invisible. We see the outside of a person much more comprehensively than the person can himself. He does not see himself in action, and if he looks in a mirror, he changes psychologically and begins to invent himself. He appears very distinct and visible, very definite and clear to eye and touch, although he is not so to himself. We are distinct and clear to him, appearing to have a very real and solid existence. But to ourselves it does not seem that we have this real and solid existence. Because we see the visible side of people plainly, and they see ours plainly, we all appear much more definite to one another than we do to ourselves. If the invisible side of people were discerned as easily as the visible side, we would live in a new humanity. As we are, we live in visible humanity, a humanity of appearances. In consequence, an extraordinary number of misunderstandings inevitably exist. Let us consider our means of communication with one another. They are limited to muscles, mainly to the smallest. We signal by means of muscles, either in speech or gesture. To reach another person, every thought, feeling, emotion must be transmitted through muscular movements and rendered visible and audible or tangible in this way. We communicate badly, partly because we never notice how we are doing it, and partly because it is an extremely difficult matter to communicate anything save the simplest observations without the danger of our signals being misinterpreted. Also, as often as not, we do not exactly know what it is we are trying to communicate. Finally, nearly everything of importance cannot be expressed. But in a general sense, it is because we communicate so badly, because other people understand our signals in their way, adding their own thoughts and feelings to them, that an inexhaustible supply of misunderstandings and unhappinesses arise. This is seeing the matter from one point of view. For if our invisible side were more easily demonstrated to others, new difficulties would arise. Now, all our thoughts, emotions, feelings, imaginations, reveries, dreams, fantasies are invisible. All that belongs to our scheming, planning, secrets, ambitions, all our hopes, fears, doubts, perplexities, all our affections, speculations, ponderings, vacuities, uncertainties, all our desires, longings, appetites, sensations, our likes, dislikes, aversions, attractions, loves and hates, all are themselves invisible. They constitute oneself. They may or may not betray their existence. They usually do so much more than we believe, for we are both much more and much less obvious to others than we suppose. But all these inner states, moods, thoughts, etc., are in themselves invisible, and all that we see of them in another is through their expression in muscular movement. No one ever sees thought. No one knows what we are thinking. We imagine we know other people, and all these imaginations we have of each other form a world of fictitious people that love and hate. It is impossible for me to say that I know anybody, and it is equally impossible to say that anybody knows me. For while I see all your bodily movements and outward appearances so easily, and have 100,000 visual impressions of you that do not exist in your mind, and I have seen you as part of the landscape, part of the house, part of the street, and have a knowledge of you that you always wish to know about, what impression you make, how you look, yet I cannot see into you, and do not know what you are, and can never know. And while I have this direct access to your visible side, to all your life as seen, you have direct access to your invisibility, and to your invisibility only you have this direct access, if you learn to use it. I and everyone else can see and hear you. The whole world might see and hear you, but only you can know yourself. We are thus like two systems of levers, one working with all the advantage in one direction, and the other with all the advantage in the other direction. Now, to the reader, all this may appear obvious, but I must assure him that it is not at all obvious. It is an extremely difficult thing to grasp, and I will endeavor to explain why this is so. We do not grasp that we are invisible. We do not realize that we live in a world of invisible people. We do not understand that life, before all other definitions, is a drama of the visible and the invisible. The reason why we do not grasp it is because it is an idea. In this book, which is about one or two ideas, I mean by the term something which has the power of altering our standpoint and changing our sense of things. An idea is, of course, invisible, and we may never have any ideas in the sense that I mean throughout our entire existence. We think that only the visible world has reality and structure, and do not conceive the possibility that the psychological world, or inner world that we know as our thought, feeling, and imagination, may also have a real structure and exist in its own space, although not that space we are in touch with through our sense organs. Into this inner space may come ideas. They may visit the mind. What we see through the power of an idea cannot be seen when we are no longer in contact with it. We know the experience of suddenly seeing the truth of something for the first time. At such moments we are altered, and if they persisted we would be permanently altered. But they come as flashes with traces of direct knowledge, direct cognition. The description of an idea is quite different from the direct cognition of it. The one takes time, the other is instantaneous. The description of the idea that we are invisible is quite different from the realization of it. Only in thinking in different ways about this invisibility of everybody and ourselves, we may attract the idea so that it illuminates us directly. Such ideas act directly on the substance of our lives as by a chemical combination, and the shock of contact may be sometimes so great as actually to change a man's life, and not merely alter his understanding of the moment. The preparation of ourselves for the possibilities of new meaning, which is more desirable than anything else, since meaninglessness is a disease, cannot be separated from contact with ideas that have transforming power. We can think of an idea in this sense as something that puts us in contact with another degree of understanding and takes us out of the inner routine and the habitual state of indolence of our consciousness, our usual reality. We cannot understand differently without ideas. It is easy enough to say in words that we are invisible, but just as we sometimes catch the meaning for the first time of a common phrase that we have to often use, we may catch the meaning of our invisibility suddenly if we repeat often enough the sentence, I am invisible. The realization of one's own separate existence begins at this point. It is not a natural idea because it is not derived from sensory experience or perceptible fact. While we know it in one sense already, it is not distinct. We know a great deal, only not distinctly, not authoritatively, through the inner perception of its truth. This half-discerned knowledge at the back of us cannot, I believe, be brought into focus save through the power of ideas. For ordinarily, what influences us above everything is the outer, sense-given, visible world of appearances. This great sensory world, with its noise, color, and movement, rushing in through the open channels of sight and hearing, overwhelms the faint understanding. If I realize my own invisibility and reach for a moment a new sense of my own existence, I am the next moment lost in the effects of outer things. I am aware only of the noises in the street, and I cannot reach the experience again. I return again to my natural mind, to which everything perceptible appeals, and for which the evidence of the senses is mainly a criterion of truth. Having experienced something inner, I find myself back in the outer, in the truth that was demonstrated to me directly as internal truth. I can no longer demonstrate to myself with my natural reason, save as a theory or conception. Now I would say that all ideas that have the power of altering us and letting new meaning into our lives are about the invisible side of things and cannot be demonstrated directly or reached by reasoning alone. Because they relate to the invisible side of things, they are not approached by reasoning, according to the evidence of the senses. Before coming to the idea of time with which this book is chiefly concerned, and which can only be understood by getting away from the appearances and by thinking about the invisible world from the standpoint of dimensions, we must make some effort to grasp the invisibility of ourselves. For I believe that we never understand anything about the invisible world if we do not grasp our own invisibility first. This demands a certain kind of effort, the nature of which is similar to the effort required to get some realization of the essential invisibility and unknowableness of another person. In this connection, I believe that we can never realize the existence of another person in any real way unless we realize our own existence. The realization of one's own existence as a real experience is the realization of one's essential invisibility.